Republican Representative Mike Lawler of New York is not thrilled with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. In fact, he thinks that she's an idiot, or at least her most recent move he described as idiotic. She recently introduced a motion to vacate Mike Johnson as Speaker because he had actually introduced a bill to fund the government and avoid a partial government shutdown, along with using Democrats to obviously help him pass it. Because, we have this whole thing called divided government, where, yes, it turns out you're going to need members of the opposing party to help you pass any sort of legislation, and funding the government is kind of important. That said, 112 Republicans, including Marjorie Greene, were not thrilled with this. They voted against the package, but it was passed by the Senate and signed by President Joe Biden the next day in basically a big FU. Hey, the majority, that's what happens. The majority wins. Now, CNN had asked Lawler on Sunday, quote, "Do you think that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene will follow through on her threat to force a motion to oust Mike Johnson as Speaker?" Lawler responded, quote, "I can't speak for her. She has introduced it. She has not yet made it privileged. But as I said today that she introduced it, it's idiotic. And it's not going to actually help advance the cause that she believes in." What causes Marjorie Greene believe in? I mean, other than,
Jewish space lasers.
I don't know. I don't know what cause she believes in, other than causing chaos. That said, he also added that it undermines our House Republican majority, which is absolutely true. Republicans are down to having a single vote majority. You need 216 to be considered a majority. Republicans are down to 217. Yeah. And so that's thanks to the resignations of Kevin McCarthy from California, Bill Johnson from Ohio, Ken Buck from Colorado. Then there's Representative Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin stepping down on April 19th. Not only that, but you had George Santos getting kicked out and replaced by Democrat Tom Suozzi. When Gallagher leaves, you're going to have 217 Republicans to 213 Democrats. And so, not good for Republicans and their majority, which was already super thin to begin with. And it just kept thinning out over this last session. Weird. Now, what's interesting here is the fact that removing Johnson from leadership wouldn't actually further reduce their majority. Johnson would still be in Congress. Kevin McCarthy, when he was removed from the speakership, it doesn't mean that he was removed from Congress. No, he decided to resign. Mike Johnson doesn't have to do that. Okay? Doesn't have to take his ball and go home. He could, if Marjorie Greene does this, or he could just go back to being, the quiet MAGA Mike Johnson that we had no idea, never heard of him before. Okay? Very, very low profile guy. Until he was thrust into the speakership. But anyway, I'm wondering, though, if Lawler is implying here that if Greene puts the House back into chaos, which is what that vote would do, if you remove MAGA Mike Johnson, they're going to have another speaker fight. They're not going to have a Speaker of the House. And so you're going to have absolute chaos in the Republican ranks. Is he saying that more Republicans might call it quits if that happens? An interesting admission if it was indeed an admission. Now, the other possibility is maybe he's afraid that this will piss off some Republican voters who don't agree with the fringe far right, but still, want to actually get some stuff done, or they don't like the idea of the government shutting down or a partial shutdown, and that being caused by Republicans. I don't really know what his reasoning is, other than from what he has said. Oh, it reduces, we're going to have a problem with our razor-thin majority. But there's more. House Intelligence Committee Chair Mike Turner, an Ohio Republican, also criticized the far right on CBS News Face the Nation on Sunday. So, didn't call out anybody by name, but we know who he's talking about. This is host Ed O'Keefe had asked Turner, quote, "Do you think the speaker is willing to put his job on the line in order to get this done? Because he is facing some threats from fellow Republicans." Turner responded, by saying this. Unfortunately, the Chaos Caucus, which is another name for the Freedom Caucus that I have heard Republicans call them, they've continued to want to stop everything that occurs in Congress. It's not as though they have an alternative plan. Well, yes, they do not have an alternative plan because this is the plan. Chaos. Block everything until you get your way, which is not going to happen. But they think, what, I've worked against Democrats. Well, now the Republicans are getting a taste of their own medicine from other Republicans. And I do find the irony here. I can't help but appreciate that, even though it ultimately is a disaster for our country when you can't get basic things done, like funding the government. And look, yes, Democrats did come in to do a compromise bill to fund the government. But the fact that we continue to have all these short-term resolutions, like every couple of months, we come up with oh no, here comes another fiscal cliff. Here comes another, time where everything's going to be on the line. We have to do a short-term, funding resolution here to fund the government, or else we're going to have a shutdown. And this, again, every couple of months, this pops up. September, I believe, is the next when the funding runs out for the government after this resolution, and so we haven't had like a 4-year budget. No, it's just been all short term, and it's because of Republicans playing this game of we're going to hold the government hostage so that we can get mainly cuts in programs that poor people need to survive. And that's basically it. They both agree on more military spending, but the difference here is, of course, where some of the other military spending is going, mainly giving it in weapons to countries like Ukraine. And that's one of the big problems that Marjorie Greene has. She doesn't want to give Ukraine money for weapons or weapons or anything like that. I don't know, because she likes Vladimir Putin. I don't know why. I don't honestly know why, and I don't think it's for any good reason, because there are good reasons to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be the world's arms dealer and shouldn't unequivocally give as much, weapons and money as they're asking for without any strings attached, because certainly I would make it conditional on we need to find a peaceful solution to this, especially when it comes to the aid to Israel. That said, I'm not in charge. Republicans are trying to be in charge, and you can see what happens when, what their priorities are. Let's just say that. We can see what their priorities are, and it's nothing good. Okay. Now, that said, Greene went after Johnson on social media, saying this: if Speaker Johnson gives another $60 billion to the defense of Ukraine's border after he fully funded Biden's deadly open border, the cruel joke would be on the American people, and it won't be April Fools. Okay, first off, there's no open border. That doesn't exist. And her statement doesn't make sense. How would you fully fund an open border? Fully fund it to be open? Why would that mean need money? You wouldn't need money for an open border. You'd just be like, let's get rid of all the fencing, all the Border Patrol agents, which have a massive budget. In fact, you've got even more investment in Border Patrol in some of the more recent legislation that's passed and that has been proposed. So I don't know what she's talking about. Fully funding the open border. But it doesn't have to make sense. No, of course it doesn't, because all she knows is that she did not get exactly what she wanted, and for her, could be enough to burn it down.